I so appreciate Jesse talking about what goes into ministry on a regular basis or one of the kinds of things, because it's one of the positions, one of the roles that's it's the least visible. All that listening isn't visible, you know what I'm saying? It's one of the least visible pieces, but I wanted to talk about one of the elements of ministry that's also less known, and that being the act of ordination. So the act of ordination is when a person is essentially converted from a regular member to a minister. It's not a magic wand, but it kind of feels a little sparkly. It is conferred by a congregation in Unitarian Universalism. That is the body that can offer ordination to a person. There is no higher authority in the church. There's no hierarchy, no top down that says these people get to be ordained and you all should do it. It is the congregation, the members who choose who shall be named as a minister. And the act of ordination is responsive, usually in the service, typically with the board president leading and the congregation responding, and the minister saying, yes, followed by a formal, I commit myself, and so on. It is this sacred moment of promise that kind of is, whew, wow. Now, some of us in the course of an act of ordination also seek to have kind of an additional physical act, known, one of those pieces being the laying on of hands. The ordinand, as we're called, might move forward, maybe standing, maybe kneeling or sitting, while those close to them gather and touch a shoulder, touch their head, and then colleagues come forward, and then the rest of the congregation come forward to form this living web all through the room. The leader asks this network to send love and energy and hope forward down the line and to bless this person for who they are and for the ministry they will discover. So this Wednesday, March 19th, will be the 25th anniversary of my ordination into ministry. I was ordained by the congregation in which I grew up, the Unitarian Universalist Church of Worcester, Massachusetts. My first memory of church is in that building. It was a part of how I felt seen as myself and how I saw the congregation as this interconnected, interrelated community. I was there in that congregation for Sunday school, for comprehensive sex education, for the coming of age when I was a teenager, for learning how hard linoleum floors are. When I took a bit of a fall, that was an adventure. But then also how hard those floors are when you sleep on them as a teenager for youth overnights. You know, I learned about church money and coffee hour and managing a religious education program. And then when I had completed my degree, when I had gone and felt ready and had been credentialed, they said yes when I asked to be ordained into ministry. And in the act of ordination, I said the powerful words. I chose also the laying on of hands as part of the church's universalist tradition. And in that laying on of hands, there was a moment when I felt the weight of all that was and the measure of all that would come. My friends had to help me up from the kneeling in front of the chancel of the congregation where I had grown up and steady me for a moment before I could walk again. I had worked with 8 congregations in various ways before that moment, and they were represented in that time. I had also in that moment parts of my life, my family for sure. I had my pediatric dentist was there. I know, right? Pediatric nurse. He was there. My 5th grade teacher who lived down the street from me when I was growing up, she was there. The French Catholic couple who ran the local vegetable farm where I worked for many summers, they were there. It was truly receiving the blessing from so many parts of my life. I had some idea of ministry and no idea all at once. And in that spirit, I recognize that spirit of, well, ignorance. I recognize how we talk about church makes a lot of assumptions that the people in the room understand the context of what's coming as well as the content of the conversation, the actual words. I also recognize that just because a story has been told once, it doesn't mean it's remembered. Never mind how many people might have, never mind how many people might have come into the room or come into a community since the first telling. In a time when people know less and less about how churches function or have come into this congregation since I was introduced here 5 years ago, I want to say a little bit more about my story. Because I'm aware we are in this moment, this kind of nexus of March, as it were, is, where 5 years ago we started this pandemic adventure, right? And how that has transformed us. 5 years ago, you were finishing the search process and welcoming me and about ready to introduce me to the congregation. Thank you to the search committee. They were wonderful. And it's no small thing to be thinking about increments of 5. Like, what is next? You can get through a year or 2 or 3, but 5, it means you're sticking around. So where shall we go next? So I just wanted to say a little bit more about how did I get here? My mother started to take my brothers and I to church when I started to ask questions about death and angels. I was about 7 to 8 years old, which tracks developmentally. The congregation where my mother took me had a large enough Sunday school where one of my brothers and I would be in separate classes. This was a good thing. We did not need to be together. This was not the congregation, the Unitarian congregation where she grew up. She was married in the other congregation in Worcester, First Church, which is also lovely. But she chose the one where she just had to get us to church. We just had to be dressed. We didn't have to be dressed well. 3 children, man, we understand. Now, in high school, I had an inkling of ministry, but quickly dismissed it and went back to enjoying being backstage for theater, because that's what I was doing. For college, I was a theater major at the University of Massachusetts at Amherst. I focused on being a stage manager and some lighting design, not acting. The theater department was excellent. It was a beautiful community within the community. But I also knew I wasn't going to work in theater. And so, on a winter night, while very much preparing for my finals, and having had, well, too much caffeine, I was focused on what I wanted to do and what mattered most to me and was dwelling, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And took stock of everything that had been. And finally, it came to me, ministry. Of course, I'm going to be a minister. And everything that I had done had led to that moment. Now, to be fair, the morning after, I kind of had slept off the caffeine and then started to actually research this. So after the aha comes the work. So I applied and focused and got into divinity school and chose Harvard Divinity. Yep, that one. And went right after college. I was one of those young adults. Do not stop, do not pass go, do not click the 200, just keep going. And it worked. I loved Boston. and all the opportunities to learn, to meet people, to get to know more churches. I had not one but two internships in congregations, one in downtown Boston and one in Maine. And I also had to go through the Unitarian Universalist Association credentialing process. I needed not one but two interviews. Yes, I had to go back. It was totally fine. I needed more time to kind of process and deepen. And then I could be ordained. And from New England, I ventured out into the world. Yes, I left my native Massachusetts and went to Alabama. Yes, that was my first ministry outside of Massachusetts. Alabama, Tuscaloosa, Alabama, on New Watermelon Road. No, really. When I saw the address, I'm like, are you for real? Yes, New Watermelon Road. And there is a Watermelon Road, just in case you're wondering. And from there, I mean, that was a powerful ministry by itself because I ended up staying for 2 years as an interim minister. And at the beginning of the second year was 9/11. It was so good that we were continuing our relationship and that we could serve with each other in such a critical moment. And from Alabama, went to South Carolina, found a spouse, also nice. We like finding the spouse. He was serving in Columbia, and I served in Greenville, South Carolina. And then went to Texas, was Chicago area for a year, but then Texas for 12 years to follow where Patrick was going for his ministry. I got to drive all across the state of Texas. And then 2 more years outside of Chicago and then being called here. So as I said, this month marks 5 years since the COVID-19 lockdowns. I am so glad I interviewed in person before that happened, mere weeks before everything was shut down. I met the search committee and entered this space. And at that moment, I mean, I already knew, but the moment of entering here was the moment where I said, yes, we can do great things together. This is what we've all been waiting for. And 4 years ago, we were just days away from my installation with this congregation on March 21st. The installation being the formal commitment between a minister and a church. What an enormous effort to try to accomplish this in the pandemic, and what imagination and what attention to detail, and it worked. We had massive screens and only a few people in the sanctuary and all kinds of cameras and people on Zoom. Oh, the problem solving, and it worked. 25 years ago, I had no idea what I would meet as I rose from the floor of the church after being charged and blessed by members and friends and colleagues and family. I'm so grateful to be here every year, more so. And I'm so grateful to be doing this ministry. I will say more in my second reflection about what the ministry together will be doing. But for right now, I invite us to sing. Please rise in body or spirit for singing number 118, This Little Light of Mine. So in a conversation about the congregation, I had the best question that I've had in a long time the other day, which was, what is the purpose of coffee hour? What is the purpose of coffee hour? I don't think I've ever had to answer that question. I love being asked to think about it. All right, so this is where I need you all to help me. What is your answer? What is the purpose of coffee hour? Caffeine. I know, me too. Woo. Fellowship. Yes, George. Getting to know fellow members. Yeah. Yes. Community building. Yes, yes. Yes. Connecting with a lot of other like-minded people. Yes. Some not so like-minded, but like-hearted. We also go for that too. Laughter. Good, good. All right. Oh, yeah. Yes. Welcoming new people. Thank you. Welcoming new people. Inclusion. All right. All right. Cookies. I know. Oh, and member gifts of cooking. Oh my gosh, we've enjoyed some really good soup recently, haven't we? Yes, Jean. Sharing who you are. Thank you. Yes. Yep. Yes, Lloyd.
Because you can't just turn an off button and go home psychologically.
Because you can't, you got some depth there. You can't just turn the off button and go home psychologically. Ooh, thank you, Lloyd. All right, so I will say one of the best features of this congregation is how it embraces coffee hour. Because this is at one of the core functions, one of the core needs of our humanity, one of the core functions of community is to provide a space to be together, to gather and to find one another and to find people. I know we're really struggling with institutional religion, and I'll say more of that in a little bit. We're really struggling with the role of institutional religion, and we need these kinds of spaces where so many people can find each other who would not have encounter each other any other way, except in passing at the store or something like that. Find each other and be in relationship together. And to have a range of people, a range of ages, a range of life situations and class and so on. There are few places in our society where we have these kinds of gathering points. And if we do nothing else but keep providing these unique multi-generational spaces, we will have done a powerful ministry into the world. We get to understand and encounter folks in ways that we don't in other ways in our parts of our lives. And the importance of this was kind of rediscovered during the pandemic. This was when, nobody was getting together with anybody, but we could be outside and we could have coffee outside. That was figured out too. Coffee and tea, and we could gather and be around each other. And this congregation got to kind of discover and rediscover, we have this fabulous patio outside and these wonderful woods, and we can still be with one another. This is one of the ways this congregation is known for doing this well. But I want to recognize in this kind of conversation about trust that's also with us this month and, with us in general in our world, I want to balance that with the reality that any religious institution is also uneven in how it lives up to its values and professions. On any given day, on every day, not everyone connects equally on a particular Sunday. And I will offer, in case you don't already know this, that I will confess that I am good at missing calls and messages, not that I mean to. So someone could easily feel left out or not heard. It happens all the time. And that experience of being not seen can undercut all of these declarations of welcoming and inclusion. And maybe such slights and misses are not earth-shattering. They're not society-transforming. They're not Richter scale seismic events in the larger scheme, but they matter to the person, to the child or the teenager or the adult or the volunteer or the elder. So I want to offer, I guarantee that members and staff and I will fail all the time. We do. We try not to be enthusiastic about it, but we fail all the time. And when that happens, I hope that you will say something. I hope that we get to give each other a second chance. Because this is not a perfect community, because it's never going to be a perfect community. That is not what we are. Humans are not perfect. We are fabulous and we are flawed. This is a human community. And it is also one that's shown its ability to adapt and grow. And that we do when we speak up and when we learn and when we say we're sorry. Now, on a larger, more concerning scale, human institutions fail all the time with real consequences and life and death implications. In religious institutions, we have a history of oppression and power over, justified by theology and defining others as less than human, not worthy of God. Or less than, maybe not about less than God, but less than the people who are in charge. We have abused the trust placed in the sacred effort of rites of passage, of connecting with God, if you will, of seeking justice, of professing love to allow, and we allow individuals to harm and manipulate others. Racism and abuse and colonialism in this country all have religious backing. And the religious trauma and deep distrust against the Catholic Church, in particular, the Christianity in general, has real sources that continues to be revealed. We keep finding ways that we are screwing each other up. It also continues to be perpetuated in ways that are known and not known. The capacity of religion to take away our humanity takes my breath away. And now, in recent weeks, you have some pastors who are preaching that empathy is a sin. I'm sorry. Empathy a sin. Where it's turning compassion on its head in an effort to erase those who are not white, not straight, not wealthy, not worthy, by setting a hierarchy on the value of who gets to live. It is a wonder that people still try to trust religion at all. I am learning more about religious trauma and its impact. I can speak for the members and not just myself when I say that this congregation is grateful for the trust placed in us. Whenever someone watches online or comes through the door with a heart that is wounded in this way. It is no small thing to try to come through these doors and be present to this place when there's so much pain that can come with that. And some of that dehumanization is also very much showing up in the news of the week. I am not well informed yet, but the justification of who gets to be in power and who does not is part of the recent efforts to detain and deport people with legal standing who speak up for justice. I am deeply concerned and even a bit scared about what that means. So, the question of ministry is how to respond to the serious work of our lives. How shall we begin? Again, we have all these years, we can celebrate anniversaries, but we still have to begin again today and tomorrow and the next Sunday and more and more. So in this season, I have been working with cultivating more of a beginner's mind. As someone who's known church all my life, I have a certain sense of how things function, a certain lived experience of walking into a religious community and saying, there's the people, there's the evidence of all the work that's been here. Tends how these things flow, and so on. I have nurtured that knowledge in my children. They have been to so many congregations that they know how to find the nursery and the classrooms and are reasonably comfortable in doing so. They give me ratings. It's very exciting. And many of you have been in this congregation or other faith communities and have learned, you have absorbed in the course of being around each other. And more people come to church like this without having past experience in a congregation or having a challenging experience in a new community. And every community has its quirks and its ways to learn as well. So in the spirit, I'm going to encourage all of us to have a beginner's mind and not assume that how to connect is obvious, not assume that we know where to find the restroom, not assume that we know how to say hello or how to get involved. I got a chance to kind of be encouraged in this kind of beginner's mind as we were talking about hymns and music in January. And I am learning yet again not to assume that I know that people know the music, even if it is really traditional tunes. So if you look at our Friday email, there's links to how to listen to the hymns or listening to the hymns. So that beginner's mind. Let's start there. I think we also, kind of in that beginner's mind spirit, but more, we need to take ourselves lightly and seriously all at once. And here's a moment when we've done this well. In October 2023, there we go. We hosted a drag story hour, the second one, and this time the congregation had protesters. And so 6 men or so from some conservative Christian congregation stood across the street from us, not on our property, but across the street, and had a bullhorn, and the preacher was kind of saying, how can you take your children to such, corruption and so on and so forth. I mean, they were kind of awful. And signs with distorted scriptural messages. Bad grammar, too, I'm just saying. And I think the theme for that event was kind of included unicorns. And look, we had one. We had a pink unicorn that day. So this photo is one of the best examples of this, the seriousness and the lightness, and also just of this congregation's ministry. What you don't see, those of us who know the photo and know the moment, what you don't see are the guys who are directly across the street from this moment. So we had pink unicorns in the face of attempted intimidation. And in case you didn't know, the unicorn was Tim Harold. Thank you, Tim. All right, thank you, Colin. But we don't just stop with, a cute pink unicorn. We also do the work and affirmed our commitment to lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender justice. Just yesterday, we received a confirmation that we have been renewed in our welcoming congregation status in the Unitarian Universalist Association. The congregation completed its official process in 2004, took a congregational vote back then. But you can take a vote, but that work is not just one and done. We need to continue to practice what we preach and add a bit of pink glitter on the way. I really want to thank Tim also for going through the process. It's a quieter process, but going through the process and documenting that and sending it to our association. This is good work. I want to encourage us to make braver choices along the way, whenever possible. There are those of us with relative safety and privilege who need to speak up whenever we can for our trans and non-binary kin, for folks who are indigenous, people of color, who are Black, for those who are excluded from access to resources that enable them to live whole lives. The onslaught of our news is hard. It is nearly impossible, and there are things we can do here and now. And maybe vent a little during coffee hour, because we're all trying to be in this together. So let us make the braver choice whenever possible. Speak up for the health and well-being of this congregation, too, not just out in the world, but also in here, so that we may strengthen and nurture and continue to be the presence we are. My colleague, Connie Goodbread, offered this note in these times. Know who you are, know whose you are, and commit to what you value the most. So that would be the last instruction. Know who you are, know whose you are, and commit to what you value most. We had a lovely example of that in remembering Pat Harris yesterday. She and her late husband, Warren, were superb greeters, formally and informally. They had this art of inclusion, of joy, and they also advocated for civil rights, as was said in the remembering of both of them yesterday. Warren and Pat showed up for the things that mattered most, and we too have that opportunity. One of our late elders, the Reverend John Wolfe of Tulsa, Oklahoma, said that great congregations make great ministers. And this congregation has that greatness. It is a privilege and a joy to be learning from you and with you, whether we have known each other for nearly 5 years or we will just meet today. I cannot wait to discover what we do next. Let us go forth. Amen.